UFC 279. Dana White and the UFC brass put a contract out on Nathaniel Diaz's head. The word is they reached out to the wild Chechnyan Khamzat Chimaev in order to get the job done. Chimaev, a fighter that has a long history of going out there and getting more than just the job done. Now, that wasn't the case in his last fight, where he did run into a little bit of turbulence in the Gilbert Burns fight, but the masses are not expecting that type of affair this upcoming Saturday. They're expecting pure dominance from the current -1,000 favorite Khamzat Chimaev over the longtime veteran Nate Diaz. One thing that we do know, though, is that Nate Diaz is game and always fully prepared to go to battle. This is a fight that you do not want to miss. We got a great episode lined up for you guys here. Of course, Kevin Holland's also on the main card. You guys know I'm going to have a lot of interesting content coming your guys' way as we lead up to Saturday night. You can catch a lot of that content over on my Instagram at MMAFortuneteller_. I will have some content coming to you guys here as well. Make sure you're subbed to the channel. I missed you guys. It's great to be back on the mic. And as you guys know, I like to say, just in case, take a look down at your shoe, your boot, and if that strap's dangling to the side there, grab that strap and strap your boots up. Let's go. UFC 279. Ring the music.
The teller, the teller, the teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller, the teller, the teller, the teller.
UFC 279 taking place in the motherland, Las Vegas. Of course, taking place at the T-Mobile Center. Headlined by Khamzat Chimaev and Nate Diaz. This is a fight that has really got me excited. As I said earlier, I know the vast majority of people are expecting domination in this fight, as I am as well. I am expecting Khamzat to go out there and handle business. It's still a fight that's so intriguing one way or another, because even if Khamzat goes in there and just smacks Nate around, that's a sight to witness. And if Nate is somehow able to hang around and use the strength of his cardio and give Khamzat some trouble in the later rounds, I mean, boy, would that be something to see as well. So just an exciting fight. You guys know we can expect a little bit of beef and some drama going into this fight. I expect the weigh-ins to be a little spicy. We already saw some glimpses of that with Khamzat as he was bumping into Paulo Costa over at the UFC Apex or the UFC training facility over there. And Khamzat's a guy that brings it just like Nate does. So I expect to see some interesting things taking place during the fight week here. Tony Ferguson on the fight card. That's awesome. Kevin Holland taking on D-Rod. Already touched upon that. You guys know I got some stuff coming as I'm going to be on the attack over Big Mouth. Just the fight card stacked, in my opinion. There's a lot of fights that I'm excited about. Some of the early fights are not the most exciting. You don't have some of the bigger names, but those are fights that should deliver. And once we hit the midway point, we're going to be on the edge of our seats. So we won't brush upon all these fights. We'll just jump into this fight card here in a second. Real quick, I was not able to get out the recap of UFC Paris out to you guys earlier. If you guys are interested to know the two bets that I targeted and took, and just a very brief recap of that fight card, stay tuned to the end of this breakdown video, or just scroll over there. Now we'll have the timestamps, but if you're interested to hear that recap, it's here on this video towards the end of the video. But other than that, we're jumping into the first fight now. The first fight of the card taking place in the welterweight division. We have Darian Weeks taking on Yohan Lainesse, or as I like to refer to him as Yohan Lainesse. And I know a lot of you guys hate my pronunciation of the fighters' names. Well, how do you like that one? Yohan Lainesse. It just screams mayonnaise all over when you look at his last name. But Yohan Lainesse is not a guy that you want to walk up to his face and tell him that his last name reminds you of a spread that you put over your Wonder Bread as you slap on your turkey and Swiss cheese, because he probably will put you to sleep. This guy carries some serious power in his hands. Although he was not able to get that knockout even in his last fight, he still showcased once again the power that he possesses, hurting Gabe Green early in that fight. Now, something else that he showcased in his UFC debut against Gabe Green was that he has a major hole in his game, and that is his cardio. He only has 9 pro fights. A lot of his fights have ended very early on, as did his Dana White's Contender Series fight where he got the contract, went in there and starched Justin Burlinson, got the first round knockout. It was a very, very heavy left hook that he landed. He's an intriguing fighter. We know that Dana White does not typically like to sign older guys on the show on Dana White's Contender Series, but a guy like Lainesse went out there, made a statement, and you can understand why he was signed. He's a fun fighter to watch. There's always a very real possibility that he goes in there and knocks out anybody that he's facing. But just note, as I learned the hard way, as I had a small stab on him, I had a small play on him in his UFC debut, he's a fighter that if he doesn't get that early knockout, he is going to have some major holes in his game as the fight progresses to the second and third round. He basically just absolutely gassed out in that fight against Gabe Green. If you guys run the tape back in that fight, he almost just gave up. It's just like he didn't want to be in there anymore. He knew he had nothing else to give, and he got hit with some heavy shots as well. But he just folded in that fight, and that's something that you definitely have to be wary of if you're looking to target him. In a fight with Darian Weeks can go. He has shown to be a solid athlete. He has the boxing background. He has some pro boxing experience. He has some good hands. He's been patient in there so far since he's been in the UFC. He really hasn't had a lot of output in his fights. Now, in his last fight, he was taking on Ian Gary, who is a very hard puzzle to put together. Now, Ian Gary was just kind of frustrating him in that fight and did give him some problems there. Obviously, Gary went on to win an easy decision victory there. Before that, he lost to Brian Barberena. That was his UFC debut at the time. Weeks is still learning on the job. He's 28 years old, but not a lot of pro experience. I got to lean Darian Weeks to win this fight based on the fact that, as we talked about, Lainesse has some major holes in his cardio. And I think that if Lainesse doesn't get that early knockout, I expect Weeks to kind of take over this fight. Weeks has also shown that he has some competent wrestling. He's decently polished there as well. He's a good athlete. From a physical standpoint, 5'11" compared to Lainesse 6'1". Yes, Lainesse is going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. We know that Lainesse has a good frame for the division. He is a big boy. Weeks a little bit more stout. Just note that I do believe that Weeks will have the wrestling edge there. And especially as the fight progresses, when Lainesse really starts to slow down, I would not be shocked if Weeks sneaks in a couple takedowns. But also on the feet, Weeks will be patient and should be able to outpoint him in the second and third round. Now, if Lainesse is going to get the job done in this fight, he's going to have to land some heavy shots early, potentially getting that knockout victory in the first round. Or, of course, there is the very real possibility after the loss that he just took to Gabe Green that he went back to the drawing board and really, really worked on his cardio and conditioning and just took that fight as a learning experience and grew from it. I mean, we have to understand that there's a realistic possibility. I mean, these fighters are warriors, and they do learn from their mistakes, and they do take their jobs very seriously. So there is a possibility of that being the case. But from the performance that I saw, I'm not willing to back him in a spot like this against a guy in Weeks that, although he's not the most impressive, he's a fighter that is decently well-rounded, and he's a conditioned fighter. So Darian Weeks is coming into this fight as a very slight favorite. He's currently a minus 128 favorite with the comeback on Yohan Lainesse at plus 102. Slight dog odds. I think that line is accurate, but if I'm going to go one way or another with the line there, I'm favoring more so Darian Weeks, even at the very, very slight favorite odds. It's a close fight. But I think there's a more realistic possibility that Weeks is able to withstand the heavy shots from Lainesse, avoid that first round knockout. There's a more likely scenario that he survives that. Then Lainesse gets that knockout, and then once it goes to the second and third round, I favor Weeks to handle business there. So give me Darian Weeks to win the first fight on the card. Elise Reed taking on the UFC newcomer Super Melly Melissa Martinez, the undefeated prospect, only 25 years old. She's 7-0. I might be I might be disappointing some of your guys' hype on this girl, Melissa Martinez, but I'll cut to the chase. I have not been super impressed with what I've seen from her when I've been breaking down tape on her. I know there's a lot of fighters like Juliana Pena that are very high on her. She's a top prospect coming from the Mexican fight scene, fighting out of Combate and all that. I know she's undefeated. I know that she has the martial arts background. I believe in Taekwondo, some type of kickboxing. She has the striking background. She's a scrappy and tough fighter, but I just haven't been super impressed with what I've seen from her on tape. Another thing is when you look at her resume, there are a lot of lower level fighters amongst that resume. So that's something that you have to take into consideration as well. We'll scroll over to her last fight where she took on Desiree Yanez. That's a fight I do believe you can pull up on YouTube. That fight was over 2.5 years ago. And that was a fight that went to a split decision. And that was finally one of the first fighters that she fought that had a decent resume going into the fight. A lot of the other fighters are just not on the level. So she felt some controversy, or excuse me, she felt some what do I want to say? Not controversy. I want to say that she felt some resistance in there for the first time. She's a fighter that likes to strike at range. She's a fighter that's working on her takedown defense. We've seen her have success with her takedown defense against fighters that were really pushing the takedown. But again, against lower level competition, I'm not so sure you put her in there with some of these UFC caliber fighters, these UFC fighters, and they don't rip her down to the mat. She was able to stay on her feet, but she was not using proper technique, in my opinion. She was very upright, and she was able to kind of use her fitness and her strength to kind of stand upright. But I think that certain fighters that are more technically sound are ripping her down to the mat. So is Elise Reed that type of fighter? I'm not necessarily sure about that either. Elise Reed, the former Cage Fury champion, a fighter that more so relies on her striking. I do believe that is her strength. It is her striking. You see her doing a little dance here. Kind of reminds me, I don't know if you guys remember that cartoon. And speaking of that cartoon, it's almost that time of year, football season after the Fox daytime games. They run some of these cartoons, right? The Simpsons, Family Guy. I think it's called Bob's Burgers, right? There was that daughter that did that weird little booty dance thing. It was all over the internet. Kind of that type of vibe going for Elise Reed right here. But Elise Reed, she has won one of her last 3 fights. The Corey McKenna fight was decently impressive. She went in there, showcased her striking. Corey McKenna, we know, is a young fighter, but a very promising and talented fighter. And Corey McKenna was able to stuff some takedowns and really work her striking. Now, the Sam Hughes fight. In the Sam Hughes fight, once again, Elise Reed did showcase some of her striking very early on. We've seen some glimpses and flashes of her striking, but in the Sam Hughes fight, Sam Hughes was eventually able to rip her down to the mat and really handle business down there, and eventually got the finish there, smashing her up. I believe she mounted her and all that. So is Melissa Martinez going to go out there and rip Elise Reed down to the mat and use some ground and pound to get the job done? I don't necessarily see that. I think that Super Melly is more so going to want to use her striking from the outside and try to land some rangy strikes. And I think that kind of falls into Elise Reed's game, as Elise is a good striker. She's going to have the UFC experience going into this fight now. She's fought 3 times in the UFC, fighting over in CFFC before that. I have respect for that promotion. Well, Melissa Martinez has been fighting over in Combate for a long time, right? I remember seeing some articles about her when they signed her. They signed her very young, and do understand though that even though she hasn't been that active, obviously we're going to see the best version of her. I mean, 2.5 year layoff. She's been training nonstop. We're going to see the best version of her. And I understand that as well. But I am actually still going to go with Elise Reed. I think that Elise Reed is live to get the upset here, as she's going to be an underdog. We'll pull up the betting line. Elise Reed at a plus 140 with the comeback on the UFC newcomer at minus 170. I'm just not crazy about that minus 170 line on Melissa Martinez when I break down tape on her. And based on the fact she's coming off a long layoff and she's making her UFC debut, there's a lot of things you could say going against her. Well, Elise Reed, we saw her bounce back. I want to point this out to you guys real quick. We saw her bounce back after getting destroyed once again via ground and pound by Sijara Eubanks. We saw her bounce back with an impressive performance against Corey McKenna. She's only 29 years old. I expect her to go back to the drawing board after that Sam Hughes fight, having to gone back to the drawing board, and she comes back as a better version of herself once again. She seems to be mentally strong, and I think that she's live to get the upset here against Melissa Martinez. Give me Elise Reed to win a decision and a close fight. Maybe we see another split decision victory by Elise Reed. We got a bantamweight scrap here. Chad Anheliger taking on Alateng Heili, the Mongolian Knight. This fight screams entertainment, in my opinion. I really do expect these guys to push the pace and really go at it. Alateng Heili coming off a big-time victory over Kevin Kroom. You guys know this was an official play of mine. I was very pleased to see him go out there and take out Kevin Kroom. Although you guys know Kevin Kroom is a great guy. We had him on the show. He's a solid dude, but not a UFC caliber fighter there. Chad Anheliger, he is a UFC caliber fighter. This was a guy that was slept on, going into his Dana White's Contender Series fight against Muin Gafarov. He was a major underdog, and he showed his true colors. Chad went in there and put it on his opponent, really pushing the pace. He's a fighter that gets better as the fight progresses. That's something that you have to love, especially when you back a fighter like that. He's a fighter that gets better as the fight progresses. I truly believe that. This is a fighter that really has a strong will. He could face adversity early in his fights. He's just going to continue to come at you. He's a well-rounded fighter as well. We've seen him land some big shots on the feet. I guess you would call them big shots. We know he has some solid grappling. For example, in his last fight against Jesse Strader, who was the much larger opponent, Strader had some success early in that fight. Eventually, Chad hit him with a nice little pop shot on the feet, dropped him, and started to take over that fight, eventually getting the finish there in the third round. On the feet, I do have to say that I'm going to be favoring Heili Alateng. His striking has really came around, and I just have a feeling that he's going to get the better of those striking exchanges. I think that if Chad's going to have success, he's really going to have to mix things up and just try to make this an ugly fight, dig deep, and try to make the stars align for himself. But I shouldn't talk about this fight as I'm super confident in it, because I have been a little bit back and forth, but I am going to be taking Heili Alateng Heili, however you want to say that. I love this picture here, seeing him side by side with guys like Henry Cejudo, Demetrius Johnson, and let me not just assume this is a nobody here. I'm sure this is a somebody, but I'm not going to be able to tell you who this guy is. A little bit of a familiar face. Who is this guy over here to the right of Demetrius Johnson? But you know what? Demetrius Johnson and Henry Cejudo are enough for me. Putting in work over there with guys like that, some of the greatest fighters on planet Earth at that respected weight. Alateng has shown that he is willing to put the work in. He's trying to become the best version of himself. He's 30 years old. He's cruising right into the prime of his career. Well, Chad Anheliger is almost 36 years old. Alateng will have a 2.5-inch reach advantage on the feet in those boxing exchanges. I do like that as well, even though Chad is an inch taller. I think that favors Alateng a little bit more so with that 2.5-inch reach, as they should be striking a lot on the feet in this fight, in my opinion. Give me Alateng Heili to win the fight. Let's go slide over and take a look at the live betting odds over on Bovada.lv. We're going to see that Heili Alateng is a minus 175 favorite right now, with the comeback on Chad at plus 145. I think that's an accurate line. Maybe Alateng should be more like a minus 165. Maybe that should come down a little bit. Chad has shown that he's game. Chad is on a major win streak as well. This is a guy that has gone out there and has constantly got the job done. This is a fighter that's going out there expecting to get his hand raised. And that does carry a lot of weight. When these fighters go out there and they have that type of confidence, they're going out there expecting to get their job done. That does carry some weight. Just understand that Chad is very live to get the job done here. Maybe more value on a plus 145 on Chad, in my opinion. But that being said, I just think that Alateng gets the better of him on the feet. And I think that Alateng will be more than prepared to stuff the takedowns, and he'll be prepared for Chad's grappling as well. So give me Heili Alateng to get the job done via decision. Norma Dumont taking on Danyelle Wolf. Now, if you guys forgot about Danyelle Wolf, She was that fighter that made her pro debut on Dana White's Contender Series about 2 years ago. She's now only 1-0 as a pro. She's up there in age. She just turned 39 years old 2 days ago. Happy belated, Mrs. Wolf. And she got the contract on the show, and Dana White did not hesitate to let us know that he was hesitant to sign her based on her age. He told her that. He doesn't like to sign these older fighters. Of course, her situation a little bit different based on the fact that she fights at the featherweight division on the women's side of things. There's not a lot of women's mixed martial arts at a high level in the featherweight division. We know that. Danyelle Wolf brought in a very decorated boxing background to the sport of MMA. We'll talk about that here in a second. A lot of gold medals in the amateur boxing scene. But first and foremost, I mean, she is a true athlete where she played basketball, she ran track, and she played field hockey over at Miller's University in Pennsylvania. I truly believe that if she would have got into the sport of MMA earlier on in her life, that she would have been a very successful fighter. I truly believe that. I mean, you could tell she's very physically fit. She's still 39 years old, and she's still hanging around. If you catch my drift, she's hanging around. I mean, she's about to be fighting in the UFC this upcoming Saturday. I mean, she's obviously a solid athlete. There's no question about that. We talked about the work she did on the boxing side of things. A three-time U.S. national amateur champ over in Colorado Springs, welterweight over in Colorado Springs, a one-time national Golden Glove champion over in 2014. She won that over in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, she has experience with the boxing. We know that. When you watch the tape on her, the lone tape that we could watch on her from the MMA side of things where she took on Tanisha Tennant, that fight obviously wasn't the most high caliber of fights. But we do have to take into consideration that it's been 2 years since that fight, so there's probably going to be a lot of growth in her game. And if the age doesn't slow her down, there's some real potential with her. But again, 39 years old, she's up there in age, so that is going to be a little bit of an issue in my opinion. And the issue that she also has in front of her is that Norma Dumont is a good fighter. I think that Norma Dumont has shown that she's a good fighter. She's went out there and has beaten legit UFC fighters as Aspen Ladd, Felicia Spencer, a fighter that's fought for the belt, Ashley Evans Smith. Ashley Evans Smith these days is taking pictures of her feet, and she's doing OnlyFans and all that type of wacko bondage type stuff. And good for her. She's making money doing it. She obviously wasn't going to be hanging around in the UFC much longer. So shout out to her for doing that. There was a little bit of controversy with her a couple years ago. Supposedly she met up with somebody on OfferUp and ended up stealing a bunch of their furniture and left the scene of the crime. But that's neither here nor there. It's not my business what Ashley Evans Smith is doing these days. When it comes to Norma Dumont, she has 9 pro fights under her belt. She's battle tested in the UFC against solid competition. She is coming off a tough split decision loss against Macy Chiasson. I expect Norma to bounce back here. She should be very hungry. Although Norma does favor her striking, she does like to strike it out. That's one aspect that you can say that Danyelle Wolf has going for her. But if Norma's smart here, if she has any type of fighter IQ, you can expect her to mix in some takedowns and work some of her jiu-jitsu that she does have. And her ground game should just be a well step above Danyelle Wolf. Now, that being said, I'll just want to repeat this one more time. Danyelle Wolf has not fought in 2 years. She has been training nonstop. We're going to see a better version of her. This is a real athlete. This is a true athlete. She's a very physically fit woman. She's a woman, not a girl now. I wouldn't be shocked if she's able to have some success here in this fight as the fight takes place in the feet. But I expect Norma to change levels at some point in time in this fight, and I expect her to give Wolf some trouble there. So, of course, I'm going Norma Dumont with the pick. Danyelle Wolf, 3-inch reach advantage. She is 4 inches taller. Again, Danyelle Wolf is the more legit featherweight fighter here. She is the larger woman. She has that going for her as well, but none of that's going to be able to contest with the experience that Dumont has. Let's take a look at the betting line for this fight. Dumont right now is a minus 400 over on Bovada.lv over Danyelle Wolf, who is a plus 300. And this fight is a little bit intriguing based on the fact that Wolf hasn't been in there in a long time. She does have the athletic pedigree. People are kind of wondering how she's going to come in and look. and then Dumont coming off that loss. But people that know what they're watching, we know that Macy's not a horrible fighter, and Dumont's gone out there and she's beat some reputable opponents. You got to go Norma Dumont's way at a minus 400 line. I mean, if you're willing to, if you feel like you want to have some action on that fight, you definitely parlay Norma, in my opinion. I don't think that you take Danyelle Wolf at the plus 300 line unless you have some real intel on this fight, unless you're close to the Danyelle Wolf situation and you know the work that she's putting in over in her gym, and you've seen her grappling start to evolve. If you know something like that, hit us up in the comment section or reach out to me, shoot me a DM. But if you don't have that type of intel, I don't see how you're siding with Danyelle Wolf in a spot like this. Norma Dumont's going to go out there, going to get a takedown or two. She should push the pace on Wolf and get the job done. So this was a fight that the UFC couldn't resist putting together. Collier versus Chris Barnett. Yes, we get it. They're both flabby, chubby. Both guys win, loss. I understand this is a fight that needed to be made. You never know. It could play out to be an entertaining fight. We've seen Chris Barnett go out there, land a wild wheel kick against Jean Vellante. That was definitely the biggest fight of his career. Other than that, pretty much folded against Ben Rothwell and Martin Buday. Definitely lacking from a cardio standpoint. Has some issues with his cardio. Let's talk about Collier for a second. Collier, again, I'll just brush upon the fact that he was a welterweight fighter, then a middleweight fighter, and then now he's a super heavyweight. I don't know what the deal was with that. Why his body blew up the way it was. I'm assuming it had something to do with fast food and junk food. But I'll say this much: Collier actually still is pretty nimble with all the weight that he added on. He's pretty nimble in there. He still showcases that he's a good boxer. He has some good striking. And I think that he is shown to be a UFC caliber heavyweight fighter. I know he doesn't have the physique, but he goes in there and he still showcases some skills. Coming off a tough split decision loss to Andrei Arlovsky. Before that, had the victory over Chase Sherman, where he showed that he has some grappling in his arsenal as well. Then the loss to Carlos Felipe. That was a very fun fight, a tough split decision loss for him there again. You know, if he didn't lose those splits, we could be talking about a fighter that's on a 4-fight winning streak, going back to the Jean Vellante fight, a common opponent of him and Chris Barnett's. And then, of course, the loss when he first returned to the heavyweight division in the UFC, the loss to Tom Aspinall, who we know is just a stud of a fighter. Collier should be more conditioned in this fight. He should look a little bit better in the later rounds. Chris Barnett really lacking with the cardio. I mean, although you see him moving well here as he gets ready to do the dishes, we know he's an athletic fighter. Chris Barnett, he has a lot of weight on him, but under all that, he is an athlete. But the issue with him is that he just doesn't hold up in his fights. He really starts to breathe heavy. His fighters, the fighters that he faces, start to take advantage of that. And if he doesn't land something wild like he did against Jean Vellante, it's going to be a tough time for him to go out there and get a victory over any of the fighters on the roster in the UFC heavyweight division. So, I'm not siding with Chris Barnett here, although we got to talk about the betting line here. Chris Barnett at a 3.5-inch reach disadvantage. He's 5'9" compared to Collier, 6'3". We know he's a much more stocky and stout fighter. Let's pull up the betting line right now because I want to talk about it. I'm not crazy about Collier being a minus 425 favorite with the comeback at plus 315 for Chris Barnett. I think that's a little wild. I understand it, but Chris Barnett is an athlete. If he's able to maybe sneak in those first 2 rounds and then able to just survive in the 3rd round, he can take this fight. I think there's a possibility that it plays out like that. It is a slim possibility. I'm definitely taking Collier to win this fight. I think that Collier will get the better of the boxing exchanges and will be the fresher fighter. But Collier, he hasn't been super impressive, and he's shown to lose those closely contested matchups. If Barnett can keep this fight close, or maybe Barnett, sharpen some things up for this fight. Maybe he conditioned himself a little bit better. Maybe he dieted a little bit better, and all of a sudden, this is a fight that plays out closer. I mean, I'm not just crazy about a minus 425 line on Collier, but I do expect Collier to get the better of the boxing exchanges. He should be the better conditioned fighter, which is still something crazy to say when you look at him, but he will be the better conditioned fighter and should she should get the job done against a guy in Chris Barnett. We can't take a guy like Chris Barnett in a spot like this, but the line is a little high in my opinion. Hey guys, real quick, and take note, listen up, because I'm not going to be doing this moving forward. If you guys sign up through my bovada.lv link, if you're looking for a new sportsbook and you reach out to me, let me give you my link. I'll give you the instructions, give me that referral for signing up through my link. You're going to get a sweet bonus in your account, a really nice bonus. You're going to be starting out, you put $100 down, you're starting with like, I think $250 right now you'll get. I think you get 150% bonus if you deposit through Bitcoin. You're going to have a couple different bonuses if you sign up through my link. It's the best sportsbook out, 24/7 customer support. It's my favorite sports betting site. And if you sign up through my link, this is the last time I'm going to be offering this for a while. Otherwise, I'm only giving you one. But if you sign up for this fight card, I'm going to be giving you 2 packages for my official plays. You can use for any fight cards you want moving forward. You can use it for this weekend and then another one. So you'll have 2 packages for my official plays. So if you're interested, reach out to me. I got my email below, my Instagram. It's all right there. My Twitter. Shoot me a message, however you want, and let me get you that link and let's sign you up and let's make some money because I got some locks coming up for this Saturday. Reach out to me. Let's make some money here. It's a no-brainer. Jamie Pickett taking on Denis Tiuliulin. Jamie Pickett, I got a bone to pick with him first and foremost. Before we even dissect this fight from a betting perspective or how these fighters match up from a fighting perspective, we got to talk about this. Jamie Pickett had the nerve to post this horrible graphic upon his Instagram. That's an instant unfollow as soon as you see something like this. Now, fortunately for me, I wasn't following him from the get-go, so I only had to see this once as I was pulling up his IG for this video. For you guys that follow him to have to see this ear, poking out of the top of his skull over here, out of his braids. I mean, I don't know what this is. I'm assuming maybe he had a nephew or a niece that made this for him, and he was trying to make them feel good, so he posted it. And if that was the case, all right, I'll back down a little bit. But other than that, this is just horrible. You don't do that. Now, Khamzat posted something similar. Maybe that Jamie could reach out to his graphic designer and could have him make one like that. Not even to say that this is the best, because the nose is way off. As you see, the wolf's nose is where the mouth is. I mean, this should be up a little bit. I don't know how you do that, but I understand the eyes have to be kind of perpendicular, but figure it out. I mean, if that's what you do. So, just poking some fun, but this is absolutely disgusting. Don't do that. And, back to the fight. All right. Got that off my chest. Jamie Pickett taking on Denis Tiuliulin. First and foremost, you guys need to recognize that Denis, although he did take that loss against Chimaev, Chimaev is an undefeated fighter, and understand that Denis took that fight on short notice. He did. He was a late replacement for that fight. He comes into this fight, in my opinion, being a little bit more prepared. I don't even know if that's an opinion, but I think that's pretty much fact. I think that he's more prepared going into this fight than he was in his UFC debut. The things that I like about Denis, although his record is not the most impressive, he's been in there with some solid competition, some stiff competition outside of the UFC. You take a look at his losses; they're against reputable opponents, fighters that are well-rounded and that are tough. Jamie Pickett, 2 and 3 in his last 5 fights. Of course, the loss to Tafan and Chukui, the loss to Jordan Wright, that was a crazy one. They really went at it, and eventually Jamie Pickett did show to have some holes in his striking defense and in his chin, getting tagged up a couple times and getting folded up by a guy in Jordan Wright that I'm not necessarily the most impressed with. I don't want to go in on too many people here. Maybe I should slow my roll. Maybe I'm in a bad mood right now. I don't know. But, Jordan Wright, the Beverly Hills Ninja, I don't think that he's on the level. He's a fun fighter to watch. He's aggressive, but he's a fighter. If you hit him with the right shot, he's going out. And he went out there and took out Pickett. Pickett's victories against Loreno Staropoli, a guy that I've been off the hype train for a long time. He's a fighter that used to fight in the welterweight division, came up to the middleweight division, fighter that's not a UFC caliber fighter these days. Joseph Holmes, Big Ugly, a fighter that was making the step up to the big stage maybe a little bit prematurely and bit off a little bit more than he could chew and lost to Jamie Pickett there. And then Kyle Dawkins just went out and darts choked Jamie Pickett. So, I'm not super impressed with the Holmes victory or the Staropoli victory. I think that Jamie Pickett's a fighter that's going to have a tough time getting victories in the UFC. Now, he's a fighter that lost multiple times in Dana White's Contender Series before finally getting that one victory and getting signed. Not a lot of fighters get those types of opportunities. And if the UFC brass would have caught wind of these types of posts, I'm sure they would have never gave him the opportunity from the get-go. But this must have slid through the cracks, or I guess he actually posted this later on. So again, just poking some fun. When it comes to this fight, I'm not necessarily crazy about the skill level of either of these fighters. They're both 34 years old. These aren't fighters that I expect to see anything major from in the next couple of years. Denis is getting another opportunity. He's a fighter, like I said, that took this first fight on short notice, and he is a fighter that does put on entertaining fights. He's a fighter that has the knack for the finish. When he gets the job done, he's gone out there, he's knocked some guys out, but he brings the fight. We saw it even in his UFC debut. He was trying to bring the fight there. He was a little bit overmatched, but he was tough. He had some flashes on the feet. He stuffed a couple takedowns. At times he was taken down as well. But like I said, he was a little overmatched in that fight, taking that fight on short notice. Jamie Pickett is a fighter that is a step down, and Denis is going to have an opportunity here to get that first UFC victory. And that's the route I'm going here. I think that Denis gets the job done. I think that there's potential for him to get that knockout. In fact, that's the route I'm going. I think Denis Tiuliulin gets the knockout over Jamie Pickett in this spot here. Let's pull up the betting line on this fight. Denis is going to be a dog. He's a plus 108 with the comeback on Jamie Pickett at minus 134. I think that this line should be more even. I think that it should be more of a even line. If anything, a slight lean on Tiuliulin, in my opinion. I know Jamie Pickett does some things decent at times. He's a well-rounded fighter, and if he can keep the fight standing, he has a long reach. He can kind of pick you apart from the outside. He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage here. He's a rangy fighter. When he starts to get things moving and grooving, he can have some success on the feet, but it's against lower level fighters. Denis Tiuliulin is a little bit of a lower level fighter, but I still think that he shows up, looks to be the best version of himself. I think he's very hungry here. He goes in and he gets a knockout victory over Jamie Pickett. Jailton Almeida taking on Anton Turkalj. Now, if you guys didn't catch wind of what's going on with this matchup, I'm going to enlighten you guys. Jailton Almeida was supposed to be fighting Shamil Abdurakhimov. Abdurakhimov did pull out of the fight. Now in steps in Anton Turkalj on short notice. If you guys remember, Anton fought on the co-main event slot of that Dana White's Contender Series card that took place about a month ago. I believe it was week 1 of this season. And it was the fight card that was the real lackluster one, where the only fight that delivered was the Joseph Pyfer main event fight. And Dana White was really annoyed with in particularly, all 8 fighters that fought under that main event. And Anton Turkalj, I believe he was the main fighter that Dana White wasn't happy with. All he did in that fight was push the pace with his grappling and just kind of leech on to his opponent, Acacio dos Santos, the Brazilian. And I think that Anton did show his colors in that fight based on the fact that is his fighting style. He's a fighter that really likes to close the distance and takes advantage of fighters that are not up to par with their grappling. He has a really nice inside trip takedown where he kind of takes his fighters down and kind of goes into that hybrid position, that the half back control, side control position, and he'll kind of hold you there, and he'll try to land some shots from the side. And if you do expose yourself, he'll take your back and he'll try to finish the fight there. But he's not really a fighter that's mixing it up in a lot of different ways. And obviously, I feel he's going to run into some trouble here because a guy like Jailton Almeida is not going to particularly let you just hold him in that position. Almeida is very well-rounded. We saw that on Dana White's Contender Series, where we saw him battle with Nazarudinov, a pretty solid fighter there, a fighter that has some really decorated grappling, and we saw Almeida getting the better of those situations. Since then, Almeida went in there, starched Danilo Marquez, and just dismantled Parker Porter, or as I like to call him, Porker Porter, as well. And that fight was about 3 months ago. And take note now, in that fight, Almeida bumped up to the heavyweight division, or I should say, since he's came over to the UFC, right? He's bumped up to the heavyweight division, whereas his fight on Dana White's Contender Series was at the light heavyweight division. A little interesting. I think that he has potential to really wreak havoc in either division, so it depends what he wants to do. But I wanted to make something clear. So the point I was making is Dana White was not happy with Anton on that show there. I think he had redemption in his heart, and he did not give him the contract on the show. And what he did is he put him in a situation where his back was against the wall now, where Anton has to jump on this opportunity to take this fight on short notice. You know, if the UFC gives you an opportunity like this and you don't jump on it, they will hold that against you. And, you know, if they caught wind that he was healthy and ready to go and he didn't take this fight, he might never get that call ever again. So Anton has to take this spot here. You see his emoji here on Instagram. He might have changed that when he found out that he had to fight Jailton Almeida. You know, seriously, Jailton Almeida is no joke. But just to clear that up, I think that the UFC is purposely throwing him in a spot like this. I think they're getting redemption on him. Jailton Almeida is a nasty fighter. He is, if you want to call him a prospect, one of the most highly touted prospects in the game right now. I know that he has 18 pro fights and he's fought in the UFC twice now. He's fought on Dana White's Contender Series once. I guess you shouldn't really call him a prospect, but he's just a fighter that's developing in front of our eyes. I know he's 31 years old, but a lot of people are still learning about him, and he's going to burst on the scene very quickly here. I think that he's going to have a big time knockout in this fight. I think that Anton's striking defense is lacking. I think he's there to be hit. I really do. And he's not going to be able to get away with what he got away with in his last fight against Ocasio dos Santos. And I think that Jailton Almeida is going to get some Brazilian revenge in this fight. Almeida will have a 1-inch reach advantage, even though he's an inch shorter. But this fight is at a catch weight of 220 pounds. So technically, it's a heavyweight matchup, but it's a catch weight, so no fighter can come in over 220. And I think that's more so from Anton's perspective coming in. You know, he's a light heavyweight fighter, and I don't think that he wants Jailton, you know, coming into this fight at 240 pounds. Well, a guy like Anton will be very much outsized and outmatched. And again, I find the weight situation for Jailton interesting. You know, this is a guy I do believe can really fill into the heavyweight frame. This guy can be a legit heavyweight fighter if he wants to, but again, can also wreak havoc in the light heavyweight division. You see him, he's chiseled up here, very lean. And if he wants to put some bulk up and put some size in him, this guy, I mean, the sky is the limit with him. Or as I like to say, the sky is not the limit. He can go past the sky, deep into outer space. And you see him matching up with Porker here. And so I think you guys know which way I'm going to go with this. I definitely have Almeida to win the fight, and I'll take Almeida by way of knockout. I think he's going to land some big shots and stop this fight one way or another, whether it's down on the mat, if it goes to the ground and pound scenario, or if it's on the feet. I favor that more so on the feet. I think he hits him at range, lands some big shots, and hurts him there. He's a minus 800 right now on Bovada.lv. with the comeback on Anton at plus 500. I also want to just note to you guys, I don't think that Anton's a bad fighter. I think that stylistically, this is just a tough matchup for him. I think that if Anton gets matched up with the right fighter, he can really expose them. If they have lower level grappling, he can do some work down there. But Jailton Almeida is not the guy. I got Almeida to win this fight. Hakeem Dawodu taking on Julian Erosa, Juicy J, 33 years of age. I remember Julian Erosa from The Ultimate Fighter. He's been around the block for a while. He has a knack for pulling off the upset that we definitely have to take note of. He goes into a lot of his fights as an underdog, and he prevails at times. The Charles Jourdain victory, the Nate Landwehr victory, the Sean Woodson victory. He did get knocked out by Sang-Woo Choi, but I think he was an underdog in a good amount of these fights. I know the Sean Woodson fight, he was a major underdog, and Julian Erosa has an unorthodox type of style on the feet. He has that awkward type of striking style. He keeps his hands low. He's a well-rounded fighter. He has some submission skills in his arsenal. Where on the other hand, you got a guy in Hakeem Dawodu who is really just a technician with his Muay Thai. Heavy leg kicks come from Hakeem. He will chop the legs down. I expect him to have a very high leg kick attack in this fight. I think he'll be looking to chop Erosa down. He has heavy hands as well. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's been working on his grappling and his takedown defense and all that, but I do believe that Hakeem favors keeping his fights on the feet and working the striking. We've seen him in there with some solid competition as well. Sneaking off that split decision victory against Julio Arce, Zabara Tukigov. That was another split decision victory there. And then he's coming off a victory against Mike Trezano. Had the loss against Movsar Evoyov, a guy that we know to be without a doubt, one of the top prospects in the game right now. So that loss doesn't say too much. Julian Erosa has a lot more experience going into this fight, though. That's definitely noteworthy. Hakeem's 16 fights compared to Julian Erosa's 36 pro fights. Julian Erosa, 33. I don't think that the age is necessarily an issue at this point in time. 33 years old. He has a lot of fight experience. I do believe that he has potential to give Hakeem some problems. That being said, I do believe that Hakeem should have the striking edge. I do like a fighter that has more of a based, more of a structured striking system like Hakeem, just very technical, very, very simple, where, Julian can get away with that unorthodox type of style. He can give guys problems, but he also leaves himself to be countered. His striking defense is lacking at times with his hands down, and I could definitely see Hakeem landing a big shot and finishing him in this fight. That being said, you guys know I got to throw another dog pick at you guys, and who better to side with than a guy like Julian Erosa, who comes in with a lot more pro experience and a guy that has a knack of pulling off the upset. And I'm going to go with Julian Erosa here to get the job done. I think if there's a fighter that's alive to pull off the upset on a big stage like this, why not Julian Erosa? I think there's a possibility that Julian Erosa can give Hakeem some problems on the feet. Of course, like I said, I favor the more structured striking system of Hakeem, but Julian can have some success in the feet and has the potential to land some shots here and there. He puts good volume out on the feet as well. So, if nobody lands that big shot, there is potential that Julian Erosa can up the pace and steal a decision here as well. Julian Erosa also has some tricky submissions. If things get zesty and wild in there, don't be shocked if Erosa pulls off some type of wild Darce choke. Seen him pull off that Darce choke twice now in the last 5 fights. I think that there's a possibility something like that happens here. He has some really long limbs. He's a tricky fighter. And like I said, give me the dog in that situation. Give me the dog. When I look at this line, let's pull up the line here. We have Hakeem Dawodu at a minus 220 with the comeback on Julian Erosa at plus 176. Of course, there's a very realistic possibility that Hakeem just pulls up with his briefcase, goes in there and handles business, keeps it simple, works the calf kicks, lands the heavy boxing shots, and Julian Erosa is not up to the task. But I think there's also a realistic possibility that Erosa stirs the pot up here. So I can't go in here picking on favorites every time. You guys get upset when I do that. So Erosa is live, so I'll throw that at you. I absolutely love this fight. Johnny Walker taking on Ian Cutelaba, the Hulk. Both of these fighters, some of the more entertaining fighters to watch perform in there. Johnny Walker only won 1 of his last 5 fights. He had that 1 knockout, and then other than that, has been knocked out, at least 3 of those 4 losses. I think the only fight that he survived was the Thiago Santos fight, and that was a fight where they were kind of sparring in there. They're kind of buddies outside of the cage, and they really didn't press that fight. Otherwise, I do think that Johnny Walker would have got knocked out if that fight was a little bit more of an aggressive type of fight and Thiago Santos stepped on the gas pedal. I think that Walker would have been knocked out again. We've seen Walker knocked out even before he got into the UFC. He definitely has holes in his striking defense. But that being said, he's a fighter that can definitely knock out any man that he steps in there with. He has a lot of unorthodox types of strikes that come from awkward angles. We've seen him drop heavy elbows in the clinch. We've seen him land some wild shots. He's a guy that's constantly grinding and putting work in. He's a fighter that doesn't seem to have lost any type of confidence, even though he's had some really, really tough fights as of recently. You got to love the spirits that he brings in. We're going to be talking about giraffe syndrome in a little bit, right? In regards to Macy Chiason's fight. Johnny Walker, just to be clear, he didn't catch it from Macy Chiason on this fight card. He's already had giraffe syndrome for some years. As you guys have seen. You've seen him starched. The giraffe syndrome was kicking in and a little bit lanky and slow at times with his movements and could cost him. And especially in a spot like this against a guy in Ian Cutelaba who is much more compact and powerful and quicker to the shot. I am favoring Cutelaba to land that shot in this fight here. Cutelaba goes in for the kill, and he will be throwing some heavy fastballs towards Johnny Walker's chin. And I think that he's going to land something crazy, something wild. I'm favoring Cutelaba to get the knockout here. This fight has all the potential in the world to live up to being another entertaining fight on this fight card. It's great to see it on the main card. I know Cutelaba has been hitting some bumps in the road as of recently, but take note, 2 losses against Magomed Ankalaev, possibly the future champ here in the near future. Had the Dustin Jacoby fight where he almost stopped Jacoby in the first round, then lost the latter 2 rounds. And we know that Jacoby's no joke. Then he went out there, took out Devin Clark, showed that his wrestling is very much up to par, which I want to talk about that here in a second. And then we had the loss against Ryan Spawn, where he did drop the ball for sure. But I want to talk about the wrestling too. Cutelaba is a solid wrestler. I could definitely see him getting in on Walker, getting some underhooks in there, slamming him down, getting on top of him. But Cutelaba has had issues with his cardio as well. That's definitely noteworthy. We've seen him slow down in his fights. He pushes the pace very early on. And if Johnny Walker can weather the storm, there's potential for him to maybe to do some work later on in the fight. And we also do have to note that at times Cutelaba puts a lot into his shots early on. He's going in there to take you out, and Johnny Walker will have potential to see some of that coming his way, and maybe he's patient. He avoids some of that and lands a counter shot, shaking things up as well. But again, I already showed you guys my cards. I'm not really worried about the 7-inch reach advantage that Walker has. I think that Cutelaba will close the distance and will land a big shot in this fight, hurting Walker bad. And I think we'll be talking about Walker losing 5 of his last 6 fights. And from there, it's going to be a little bit of an issue for Walker. I know he has the name. I know that he's an entertaining fighter, but you got to win some fights too, right? You got to go in there. You got to win some fights. And you see Cutelaba with the family. And Cutelaba, take a look at the wife here. Cutelaba, Piotr Jan. Those are guys I like to say that are winning in life, right? They're without a doubt winning in life when it comes to their wives. Man, when you got a wife like that, sheesh. All right, so Cutelaba to get the job done. Let's talk about the betting line here. Let's pull it up on Bovada.lv. And then we'll slide over to MMA odds too. We can check out how the line movement's been going on this fight. But Cutelaba is a -210 favorite, slightly over a 2-1 favorite, with Walker at a +170 line as the dog. Cutelaba, like I said, at times can be a little wild. At times he can be vulnerable with his fighting style. I just don't know if Walker's going to be able to capitalize on any mistakes Cutelaba makes. And I think that Cutelaba is going to get this job done one way or another. I think he gets the knockout. I think he gets the finish. But even if he doesn't, I think he could take 2 rounds of the 3. He could use some wrestling. He can get on top of Walker. Even possibly ending the fight with some ground and pound in the first round, where they're nice and fresh. If he rips him down to the mat, smashes him up down there. I like Ian Cutelaba to win the fight. And let's take a look at the line movement on this fight real quick while we have MMA odds up. We haven't been pulling them up as much recently. And not a lot of line movement. We've seen Cutelaba. We've seen the line as good as -165 on him if you were trying to grab him. But that was a while back. We're talking about almost 2 weeks ago. And then currently you saw a little bit of a dip as well, where he was a -180. And then you see some money coming in on him, where he's now in that -200 range. And I think that will settle down, though. I don't expect it to creep up to 230, 240. I think it'll stay right around that -200 range. So you're paying 2-1 if you want him there. And maybe you want to take a look into the prop finish for him to get a finish. He is a fighter that will go out there and look to get that finish for you. And Johnny Walker is a fighter that has been being finished as of recently. And I wouldn't be surprised also if Walker looks to bring the fight and make a statement himself, and you see a clash there. So maybe you look at the under, maybe you look at those types of props. Irene Aldana taking on Macy Chiasson. Macy Chiasson coming off that sneaky victory over Norma Dumont. We talked about that earlier. Big victory for her. Again, we did clear up the air earlier. There was going to be no type of controversy that she spread giraffe syndrome over to Johnny Walker. Again, Johnny did have his own case, but Macy Chiasson, the head of the pack when it comes to giraffe syndrome. And Irene Aldana, although she's a tall and rangy fighter, she does not have Irene Aldana. So make sure we were clear upon that as well. There was some controversial reports of her having giraffe syndrome. That is not the case. Irene Aldana is crisp with her boxing. She is sharp to the punch. I love her movement. And in fact, I've been very high on Irene Aldana for a long time. She's a fighter that has really progressed over the last couple of years. She is a gem that has been being polished more so over the last couple of years. grounding herself in the UFC. She's been in there with some of the best competition in women's mixed martial arts, right? Yana Kunitskaya, a fighter I have respect for, the loss to Holly Holm. I mean, being in there with a girl like Holly Holm, that was a tough puzzle for her to figure out. She wasn't able to figure it out, but she definitely learned from that experience. She's been in there with Ketlin Vieira, the Vanessa Mello victory, whatever. The close loss to Raquel Pennington. We could run the tape back on Irene Aldana. She has some fights that are noteworthy. Even before that, the victories over Betch Coera, the Lucy Padilova victory. We saw Lucy just make a return to the octagon looking good. The Talita Bernardo fight. She's a very accomplished fighter outside of the UFC these days. She's been in there with Caitlin Chikogian, a split decision loss. Again, too tough. Just a split decision loss over her there. It was, yes, 2 tough split decision losses. I knew there was another one there. The Raquel Pennington was a split as well against high-level competition. So she's been in there with some good fighters. Macy Chiasson is a good fighter. You guys know I'm not crazy about Macy Chiasson. She rubbed me the wrong way when she was trying to avoid that Aspen Ladd fight. I did not like the way that she was talking about, why is Aspen trying to pick a fight with me? She's ranked so much higher than me. And just like it was like she was trying to spin it as if Aspen Ladd was trying to bully her. And then when you saw Aspen Ladd explain her side of the story, it was the fact that everybody in the top 10 all had fights lined up, and the only one that was there, if you went back the list of the rankings, the next fighter that was available is Macy Chiasson. And Macy Chiasson should have been willing to step up and take that fight. She was trying to avoid that fight like crazy. And in fact, avoiding it at one point in time, right? When it was supposed to happen, avoiding that fight, basically pulling out, whatever the situation was. She did not take the fight. Was it because Aspen Ladd missed weight by a couple pounds and she withdrew from the fight? You guys know the situation I'm talking about. So I just didn't like the way that Macy Chiasson talked about that entire situation. I mean, she's a cage fighter. You got to have more confidence in yourself. You have to want to jump the list. I want fighters that are unranked that want to fight the number 1 fighters in the world. And it wasn't like Macy Chiasson was some scrub up and comer. I mean, Macy Chiasson's been around the block for a long time. And look at her now. Now she has to go in there and fight a girl like Irene Aldana, who's even more dangerous than an Aspen Ladd. If your time's going to come one way or another. You're 31 years old already. You're not some spring chicken. Step in the cage. The door's going to get locked behind you. Go in there and let's see what you're made of. You have 10 pro fights now. Aldana has 19 pro fights. I understand Chiasson wants to gain more and more experience, but wasn't a fan of how that all played out. And Irene Aldana is going to put it on her. Irene Aldana is a nasty striker. She's going to be more crisp to the shot. Like I said, she does not suffer from GD, well, Macy Chiasson does suffer from GD. And again, for some of you guys, because I get messages from you guys asking me what giraffe syndrome is, it's a joke. It's in regards to those fighters that are a little bit lanky, a little bit slow with their movement. And, sometimes these more crisp fighters, they get on the inside, they're a little bit sharper to the punch, and you see fighters with GD get put out. And I'm really hoping that's what we see this upcoming Saturday. I would love to see a women's knockout. If Irene Aldana can land some big shots, I would love to see that. And she's the type of fighter that has that potential. Give me Irene Aldana to win this fight all day. I think Irene will be the much more crisp striker. She'll be able to break off Macy's clinch and grasp, and Irene handles this fight. And Irene Aldana is a minus 182 right now on Bovada.lv. I want to run over to MMAodds.com as well because I believe there has been some line movement with this fight, and there definitely has. Irene Aldana opened up as a minus 155. We've seen it go all the way to a minus 200 and then jump back up now to a minus 170 over at DraftKings. So the line movement has been wild. People are liking what they see from Macy as well. I like Irene Aldana here, and if you're smart with what line you're getting with the line movement, if you're making the right moves there, I think you're doing something good there. Irene Aldana is a warrior. Give me Irene Aldana to win this fight, and I would love to see a knockout, but you guys know it's hard to call knockouts on the women's side of things, but I would love to see some type of finish from Irene Aldana here. In the next match, we got Big Mouth Kevin Holland taking on the Teller himself. You see how they match up here. You got Kevin Holland at 29 years old. Better start respecting his elders. The Teller at 33. The Teller at 5'11 and a half. That's facts, all right? We're not just 5'11 flat. Almost 6 foot. And in fact, my Tinder days and all that, 100% listed at 6 foot. In fact, if I want, I could even throw a little bit of some gel soles in my shoes. I'm 6 foot all day, and no one's talking about it. All right, so on the comeback, Kevin Holland, 6'3", nickname Big Mouth the Teller. IG followers, a lot's changed since these days. I'm at the 8K mark now, right around that 8K mark. So I'm sure Holland stepped it up as well at about $500,000. 22-8. He's now 23-8, I do believe. Teller undefeated. I've never tasted defeat, and that's actually factual. I know a lot of your boys always told you stories like, "Oh, I never lost a street fight in my life." I mean, I swear to God, I never lost a street fight in my life. I mean, I've been blindsided before. I've been, when I was a kid in the neighborhood, I had an older kid. One time they pulled up on us, tried to steal the bikes, sucker punched me, blindsided me, gave me a swollen eye. But actual true story ended up coming full circle to that kid years later. And my brother ended up knocking him unconscious, and we had to drag his body out of the door in college. Crazy story anyway, but that's true stories. And this kid was older and whatnot, but so redemption there. So still technically undefeated. And I swear I mean that. In all the street fights I've ever been in, handled business. And obviously you guys know how it is, man. When you're training MMA, you get in street fights, of course you're going to have a leg up, putting a lot of kids to sleep, choking out a lot of kids. One kid I choked out at a house party. Unfortunately, he had to wake up and come at me again. I had to put him out again for the second time. And when I dropped him, his head plunked off the concrete pretty bad in front of that Halloween party. I was actually dressed up as a biker boy. I had the gloves on, the bandana, and the leather jacket. My boy was dressed up as the fat chef. Even had to go in and give the kid a kick in the face in the fat chef outfit. I got some wild stories. You guys, a lot of you probably wouldn't even believe half the stories I have, because some of the stories I have are almost out of a movie. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys have stories like that too, but some of you guys that didn't live that type of lifestyle, I tell some of my stories and they think it's exaggerated. I got some crazy ones, man. Broke the pool stick on a kid's head. The pool stick fucking flew across the bar, hit some girls crazy. Police had me out back of the bar. The security had me calling the police. The police were coming up. I ran away as the police came, ran behind these trailers, hit under the trailer, got away. Kid ended up getting like 16 staples down his head. Ended up bumping into the kid years later. I got some good ones. But just want to clarify that undefeated, because that's a fact. Strengths. The Teller's guillotine is impossible to escape. If I do clinch the guillotine, you're not getting out of it. You guys seen the video evidence in my intro. But in seriousness as well, my guillotine was my go-to. I used to put a lot of people out that guillotine, and I've trained with some pretty polished fighters, man, some kids that went pro and all that, and they always respected my guillotine. They used to ask me questions about it. The guillotine was my strength. Kevin Holland, he can talk while he fights, so I mean, you got to side with me there. Weakness, not available. No, there's no weaknesses on the Teller side, and takedown defense on Kevin Holland. I gotta say, I'm picking the Teller to win this fight. I think that the Teller should be right around a minus 500 favorite going into it. And all right, I had to brush upon this matchup. You guys know me and Holland went at it going into his last fight, and you guys know I'm going to be going at it with Kevin Holland going into this fight. I'm stirring the pot up starting today. I'm going to be putting stuff on my IG. I'm coming at him, and Holland was more than willing to engage in me. I'll give him credit on that. Some guys, they'll try to big shot you, like they don't see you. But I give credit to Holland. He gives it back and whatnot. But I'll tell you what. If you want to know the facts, and I'm going to get into the fight real quick, but if you want to know the facts, I'm going to be talking about another fighter coming up in a minute who is not a good dude, a guy that I was actually a fan of that I'm not a fan of anymore. And you guys know there's a lot of fighters and a lot of athletes that are like this. When you actually meet them in person, man, they're not good dudes. I promise you, this guy, Kevin Holland, is not a good dude. When I had the whole beef thing going on, I had so many of you guys reach out to me, and even stuff that was happening that fight week. A fan of the show, someone that's probably watching this right now, you know what I'm talking about, bumped into Kevin Holland at the after party or whatever it was. They were all there. In fact, it wasn't even an after party. I believe it was the day before the fight, or after, whatever it was, before or after. He was there with this girl. He saw him. There was barely anybody there. It was quiet. They were getting food or whatever. Walked up to Holland, was just letting him know that he was a fan. And in fact, he was a fan. And basically Holland just said, nah, no autographs. He asked for an autograph. No autographs, man. And then, which, no offense, dude, if you're watching this, but I thought this was a little bit of a sucker move. The dude had his girl follow up and try to get the autograph after he told him no, which, Teller ain't doing something like that. So don't get upset, I'm calling you out, but you don't do that. You don't send your girl over to another man ever, first off, if you're not by her side, and that's just cheesy, but shout out to you anyway. But, and then Holland, once again, kind of like disrespected his girl, like, yo, get out of here, enough. But, I don't understand why Holland couldn't just give the guy a little a little graph there. And then I had a lot of other messages from people saying that Kevin Holland's actually a dick. I mean, for just a couple other different experiences. And you could tell, although he has that joking type of demeanor where he's kind of like goofing around and whatnot, he's really not. He's not. You could, if you look into it, he's kind of the dick. You know what I mean? He's like, he's joking, but he's not joking at the same time. And he's kind of stuck up. And I'm hoping my boy D-Rod's going to put it on him in this fight, because there's definitely some path to victory for D-Rod. D-Rod has some underrated wrestling. He's a strong fella. There's still that possibility that Kevin Holland is not completely brushed up there. I think that if D-Rod can maybe sneak an inside leg trip, there, he can maybe get on top of Holland. And D-Rod's a stout dude. Maybe he can get on top of him. And this is a catch weight at 180 pounds. I like that. We know that Kevin Holland was barely, I think that's what he walks around at, right? He wasn't cutting any weight for the middleweight division. We know he dropped down to the welterweight division. I know D-Rod's been putting in work at the welterweight division too, but I think he could bulk up and could beef up, and I think that he might have some strength that he could work with in those exchanges where maybe he can get the better of Holland. Holland, of course, has been working on his grappling. Holland is a phenomenal striker. He can tag people up, man. He's a dangerous striker, but he's a little reckless at times. And, the two losses, he was, overextending with his shots, getting taken down by Derek Brunson in the Marvin Vettori fight. We know Marvin Vettori is a stud. So really, when you look at that loss, it's not the worst in retrospect. The Kyle Daukaus fight, he got starched in that fight. I know he headbutted him, but before that, Daukaus was looking very good, and Daukaus choked him out. So it is what it is. We talked about those street fights, not dropping any. If that was in the street, Holland took that L right there, because, we ain't worried about headbutts like that. They clashed, and Daukaus didn't cripple. They clashed heads, and Holland folded up. So since then, Holland loses the first round against Cowboy Oliveira, but then came back strong. And then in the last fight, he did it. He did his thing against Tim Means. Daniel Rodriguez is a silky smooth boxer. You see him working with John Wood right here over at Syndicate MMA. I like that. Daniel Rodriguez is a very good friend of a friend of mine, Sasha Palatnikov. You guys know Sasha Palatnikov, trying to make his way back to the UFC. An awesome dude. I had the pleasure of having him on the show, MMA Live Discussion, back in the day. And one of my favorite fighters to watch fight these days is Sasha Palatnikov, and they have their own podcast in D-Rod. So obviously I get good information from Sasha. Sasha keeps me in the loop, and he's a solid dude. And I know that Daniel Rodriguez is ready to go. He's in phenomenal shape, and he's an unorthodox boxer. He has that southpaw style. He can give Kevin Holland some problems on the feet. And I'm excited for this fight. Listen, I'd be lying to you guys. You guys know the deal, man. Kevin Holland is a legit fighter. Obviously, he's coming into this fight at over a 2-to-1 favorite going into this match with Daniel Rodriguez. But I think that Daniel Rodriguez is more than live to get the job done. I'm picking my boy D-Rod to get the job done here. D-Rod's going to hang with him on the feet in the boxing exchanges, and there's going to be some mix-up in the grappling, and I think that D-Rod can get on top of him there. D-Rod's on a 3-fight winning streak. Gave Kevin Lee his walking papers. The Preston Parsons, the Mike Perry victory was a big one. They lost to Nicholas Dalby. I thought he probably won that fight. A lot of people thought that he won that fight. Knocked out Dwight Cramp before that. He's 35 years old. He's more experienced. Kevin Holland, I shouldn't say he's more experienced. Excuse me there. That was a slip up. Kevin Holland's putting the work. Kevin Holland's 30 pro fights compared to Daniel Rodriguez's 18 pro fights. What I meant to say is just D-Rod is the more mature fighter from an age perspective. Kevin Holland still has some growing up to do. He's not even 3-0 yet. And I'm going to pick D-Rod to get the job done here. You guys know I'm picking D-Rod to get the job done. I'm fading Kevin Holland until we see him sleeping. And even if he gets past D-Rod here, as he makes his way up to the top of the division, if he ever were to fight guys like Khamzat and Shavkat Rakhmonov, those types of guys that have solid wrestling, you're going to see Kevin Holland picked up, thrown over like a sack of potatoes over the shoulder, and slammed down. All right, so Kevin Holland, a flat -200 right now over D-Rod at +163. Give me the dog, D-Rod at +163. And sorry that one went on for a while, but you guys know how to get some stuff off my chest there. El Kukui makes his return, and it's up at the welterweight division where he takes on the Leech, Jinglang Li, Tony Ferguson. Let's brush upon Tony real quick. Tony is a guy I used to despise when he was coming off The Ultimate Fighter. If you remember, he was talking about that one fighter's relationship with his son. He had an alcohol problem on the show. You could tell that he was just a wild dude that had some mental issues. It's kind of funny because I remember when he left that show, I said I was always going to be rooting for him to get put on conscience for what he said about that fighter's kid. But you know what? Tony has grown on me throughout the years, and obviously he's grown on everybody. Tony has become one of the more fan-friendly fighters, and it has a little bit to do with his personality. He's a quirky, weird type of dude, but it also has to do mostly with his fighting style. This guy brings it like no other. Now, he's on a 4-fight losing skid, getting knocked out by Justin Gaethje. That was the fight that really took his soul. The Charles Oliveira fight just dominated in the wrestling department. Beneil Dariush dominated him with the grappling and the wrestling, and then Michael Chandler absolutely put his lights out in that last fight that was 3 months ago. Jingliang Li coming off that big victory against Muslim Salikov where he knocked him out. We know the Leech brings it every time. The fight before that got dominated by Khamzat Chimaev. We know Chimaev is a high-caliber fighter with some serious wrestling. That shouldn't really be an issue. I don't expect a guy like Tony to be picking up the Leech over his shoulder and slamming him down. We know Tony has some wrestling, but it's a different type of wrestling, and Tony is a smaller fighter, the natural lightweight fighter. Although Tony has that 4.5 inch reach advantage, he has a weird frame, a little bit shorter, and just he should be a little bit more of the slender type of fighter. Although of course he'll come into this fight a little bit thicker, but Jingliang Li is a solid dude. I mean, he's a legit welterweight fighter. He carries some serious power in his hands. He's a fan-friendly fighter. I love this matchup by the UFC. These are two guys that people really love to watch perform. They bring the fight. You see the blood all over them already on this poster. That's what this fight's going to look like. I'm hoping that Tony can hang tough and allow this fight to turn into a war. Obviously, with the way that he was just put out, there's potential that he's not going to be able to hold up and he just gets put out early. I think there's some real potential for that. And I hate to say it. I'm going to kind of slide over to the pick right now, man. I got the Leech winning this fight via knockout. I mean, the way that Tony was knocked out in that last fight and the damage that he's taken from dating back to the Justin Gaethje fight, he just hasn't looked like himself. And, the Leech, he's 34 years old. He still has more to give. I mean, he looked very good in that last fight against Muslim Salikov, a polished kickboxer. The knockout over Santiago Ponzinibbio, that looks really good in retrospect also. You take a look at his losses, he was kind of grinded out by wrestlers. And then you look at his victories, he's knocking these dudes out. The knockout over Zaleski dos Santos, a polished striker. The knockout over Ponzinibbio, and the knockout over Salikov, all three polished strikers. So I know Tony Ferguson is unorthodox and tricky on the feet and has his own type of boxing and unorthodox elbows and all that. But that ain't gonna work here, in my opinion. I think that the Leech is gonna land a big shot and put him out. I really do think that's what we're gonna see. Unfortunately, I'm rooting for Tony, but I think we're gonna be seeing possibly Tony's last fight in the UFC. I don't know if he gets knocked out in devastating fashion. The UFC might push him to retire. I don't know if Tony will be a willing participant in that. He might try to hang around or maybe fight over in Bellator or something. The guy's just so competitive. I couldn't imagine a guy like him hanging him up at this point in his life. And in fact, a guy like Tony kind of worries me because I do believe if he's not fighting, I don't know what a guy like Tony's doing. He better start coaching somebody. He better start training fighters. I think that a guy like Tony needs to be in the gym and be active in that sense. Otherwise, he'll be a wild dude. In other aspects, we know he's had issues in his personal life before, but has seemed to really level out to some degree. But you never know with people like that. So give me the Leech to win this fight. And we'll pull up the live line right now. And you'll see that the Leech is a minus 310 favorite with the comeback on Tony at plus 250. The Jingliang Li is a pretty hefty favorite here. And I think we understand why. He's the natural welterweight fighter. We don't know how Tony's going to look up in weight. And then just the damage that he's taken. And Jingliang Li can inflict real damage. And there's real potential for that knockout. And give me Jingliang Li via knockout, via first round knockout. Just for you guys that are reaching out to me asking what my official plays are, if you didn't know, I do charge for my exclusive bets. This is a great fight card for you to jump on. If you're interested, reach out to me. I'll give you my pricing if it's something you're interested in. If not, shoot me a message anyway. Just say what's up. I still got love for you guys regardless. But for those of you guys that are interested in my official plays, reach out to me and I'll give you my pricing. This is the weekend to do it. I'm letting you guys know that right now. Reach out to me however you want. If you're interested, you'll make some money off it. I promise you. Khamzat Chimaev taking on Nate Diaz. We're going to jump into the fight here in a second, but I want to talk about something I brushed upon earlier, how these fighters actually are in the real world, how they are in their real personal lives. Again, some of you guys, maybe you want to hear this type of stuff. Maybe some of you guys don't. Some of you guys might think I'm corny or I'm just being a little butthurt. But I'm just going to tell you my personal experience because I just bumped into Khamzat at that UFC Jacksonville fight card that I was at. Saw him in the hotel, was right next to him. I'll tell you about my experience. I even have a little video clip. It's not the best. Maybe I'll throw it on the IG this week or whatnot. But, as I was walking into the arena, and this is also going to correlate to Nate Diaz. And it's funny because it's kind of the opposite of what some people would think. And that's why you can never judge a fighter from the outside. Khamzat Chimaev seems like a happy-go-lucky type of guy. You see him chilling with Darren Till and all that. You guys know that I became a big fan of Khamzat since he's bursted on the scene. He's made me money. I love his killer mentality. He wants to kill everybody. As I was walking into the arena, making my way over to UFC Jacksonville, which is one of the worst places you can put an event. It's good for me because it's in the state of Florida, but Jacksonville is a cesspool. Jacksonville has the county jail right next to the arena. Jacksonville is one of the worst cities that you'll ever go to. In fact, hopefully you've never been there and don't ever go there. The UFC owed them an event. Hopefully they never do another one there. Go to Orlando, go to Tampa, go to South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, whatever. Go to Palm Beach. Do not go to Jacksonville ever again. It's disgusting. But anyway, so the jail is right there. Inmates are looking at the windows. We all been there, right? It's looking at the windows. At least they get a good view. They get to see everybody walking to the bars and walking to the fights. But there was a hotel, again, literally right across the street from the jail. The fighters' hotel is right next to the jail. But I see all these fighters coming out of the hotel as I'm walking past the hotel. I walked over to the bridge. It's pretty cool in that sense. You go over this bridge and you go to this little island thing. And I see the fighter hotel. I see the buses and whatnot. I see people over there. I know there's going to be fighters everywhere. So I walk into the lobby. Who do I see sitting right there with this posse? Khamzat Chimaev sitting right there on this little couch where there's like a little coffee thing and some food. It's quiet. It's really quiet. There's one police officer there, but it's really quiet. No one's bothering him. He's sitting there, and he has some girl in his lap. Believe it or not, he did. He had a girl with him. You never really see her on video or whatnot, but he had a little girl with him, and was just vibing. And, I looked over at him. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Khamzat's, and hopefully you guys catch wind of what type of guy I am. I'm not like some nut, like disrespectful type of guy. I said it in as much of in a respectful way. I said, let's go, Khamzat, let's go, baby, like that. Just, you see one of your favorite fighters right there. He's sitting there. He wasn't even in conversation. He's sitting there, and I'm giving him just a, let's go, baby. You're going to finish this guy. You're going to finish Burns. Just a little one real quick. No one was even talking to him. No one was bothering him. He didn't like that at all. I saw him look at me, and right away he was just like kind of like, yeah, like, all right, man, get out my face. Like, kind of get out of here. Leave me alone. And it was, I understand he had a fight coming up. He wasn't cutting weight. He had the fight coming up in hours. Doesn't seem like the type of fighter that's nervous or I'm throwing him off, right? I mean, give me a break, When he did that, obviously, he kind of lost me as a fan. It was weird because I had him in that parlay that night, but I was kind of almost wanting to see him get knocked out. And, and then now when I see him on the embedded and I see, when I see the leech going up to him and saying, oh, respect, how we shared the octagon together, how they were translating and he's saying, oh, bowing and saying we have a piece of each other and we're always brothers to an extent because we fought each other. And I see Khamzat kind of just sitting there, not saying anything respectful back, just kind of like, he has a cocky mentality and he didn't show any love back. And I see that and I know exactly what kind of dude Khamzat is. And he's not the most friendly guy. Comes off like a cool guy. I still love his fighting style. I love the devastating fighting style that he brings into the cage. And I'll still root for him to an extent. But just know that he's not a cool dude. And if you bump into him, it's probably not going to be a pleasant experience. I'll tell you that right now. Really quickly, in a different experience, bumped into Nate Diaz one time in Vegas. Me and my boy, he's in the food court of one of the hotels, and one of the coolest dudes you'll ever meet. Saw Nate Diaz, chatted up real quick, taking pictures with everybody. Just as cool as it comes. I didn't even want to overwhelm him with the picture and all that. My boy got a picture with him. I just said, "What's up?" Literally, just as cool as it comes. Just what's up, man? Talking to everybody. Nate Diaz is as cool as it comes. So I want to tell you that right now. If you didn't realize that, although Nate comes off like the ghetto badass, this and that, Nate is the man of the people, and Khamzat on some other stuff. So I want to see Nate Diaz get this finish. I want to see him pull this fight off one way or another. I mean, he's got his hands full. Khamzat is such a bad matchup for him. I'm not gonna chew your guys' ears off with the same old story. You guys know what's going on. Nate Diaz is in the last fight of his contract. the UFC have had issues with him for a long time as far as setting up fights and whatnot. They're trying to have his departure go off in an awful way with Khamzat destroying him. The fight's up at the welterweight division, which we know Nate has had a couple fights there, but he's not a natural welterweight. He is a lightweight. That's where he thrives. And he's going to have his hands full here. If you guys haven't seen the Rory McDonald versus Nate Diaz fight, when Nate did that a little initial step up to the welterweight division, he had a couple fights up there, and he had some success against lower level fighters back then. But when he fought guys like Rory McDonald, guys that know how to wrestle and use their size, we saw Rory throw around Nate Diaz like a sack of potatoes. That's what I'm expecting in this fight. I'm expecting Khamzat to really ragdoll Nate here. I think some people will be, I think there's a possibility that some of you guys will be surprised to see that Nate Diaz holds up a little bit more so than some of you guys think. I think that Nate is tough. He has great cardio. Of course, there's the potential that Nate maybe hangs around in the later rounds and has some success there. Some success. I mean, take that with a grain of salt. Just kind of hangs around and uses his boxing. We saw him hurt Leon Edwards late in that fight. We saw Khamzat kind of hit some turbulence in that last fight also. Against Gilbert Burns, so you see that type of potential. But I'm going to cut to the chase. Khamzat is going to be way stronger. He's the more naturally larger man. He's fought in the middleweight division. He's going to be lifting Nate Diaz up. He's going to be slamming him down. Nate's jiu-jitsu is good. He might be able to avoid any type of submission there or being finished down in the mat, but he's going to get bloodied up. Nate Diaz is full of scar tissue. He's going to get opened up, and even if he's able to survive getting knocked out from Khamzat from just the pure damage, he's going to be so bloodied up. There's potential for another TKO loss like he took against Jorge Masvidal. And I'd be surprised if Nate walks out of this fight, if this fight lasts to the 5th round and he walks out of the cage having this fight gone 5 rounds. I'd be shocked. And, I love the fact that he's training with Chao Bahayo. We know that he's just a stud of a fighter. And, these guys got it going on over there right now, and Khamzat's probably going to eat Nate, eat him up for dinner, man. Nate's 37 years old. Khamzat's 28. This is a mismatch, and you know it. Nate Diaz has a 1-inch reach, but whatever. Other than that, Khamzat 2 inches taller, the much stronger man, and we will pull up the betting line. We talked about it being a -1,000 earlier. Let's see if there's any movement since I've been recording this as I'm losing my voice over here. Khamzat's still a -1,000 on Bovada. The comeback of +650 on Nate Diaz. It's a crazy line, but you know what? Favor him even at that -1,000 if you want to throw it in a parlay with some other locks that you have, maybe a tennis lock or something else. I don't know what you guys are doing these days. I don't necessarily recommend that. Khamzat's going to get the job done here, and we all know that. And Nate Diaz maybe works his way over to a boxing match with Jake Paul or something like that, and he makes some money outside the cage. Who knows what's next from him? I don't think we're going to be seeing Nate Diaz fighting in the UFC after this fight. Time will tell. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC 279. I'm ecstatic for this fight card. You guys got to follow me on IG if you haven't already. Keep up to date with me because I'm going to have a lot of content coming at you guys. I'm trying to hop on the live this upcoming Saturday. I'll do a live video. I know I've been saying I'm going to do that for a while, but I really want to get to that this Saturday. But I'll definitely have a lot of content coming to you guys, and I want to keep up with you guys as well. So catch me on IG and hit me up in the comment section. It's the best way to get a hold of me. And what else? You guys know I got to give you some parting words. We'll dig deep with some parting words here. But make sure you guys are all being smart with your bets this upcoming weekend. This is just a little side note. Make sure you're smart with your bets. Make sure you're not blowing your load on any stupid type of bets. Be smart, be cerebral with what you're doing. Let's stack up your accounts this upcoming weekend. There's a lot of spots to make some good money. Besides that, make sure you guys are all well and balanced with your life. Make sure you're eating healthy, you're training, you're taking care of yourself, and in one way or another, hang a heavy bag in your garage. Put the speed bag in your garage if you're not able to make it to your local gym, or your if you're working out, or your MMA gym. If you're not able to do that, get some type of exercise in, eat healthy, get that testosterone flowing. Don't have any type of negative thoughts. Don't start aging on yourself. Always remember the thoughts you had when you were a nice young buck, a young warrior. Or if you're like me and you're hitting your prime right now, maintain that mindset throughout the rest of your life. All right, don't ever forget it. Keep it. You can always harness it and keep it going for the rest of your life. If you're down on your luck, if you're bumping into some rough times, just remember who you were when you were at your peak, because you're that same person. You always are that same person. Dig deep, pull it back out of yourself, and realize what you're made of. Remember what you used to think when you're sharp and when you're at your best. And again, that's always in you, so you can pull that out of yourself right now. So if now is the time that you need to do that, you need to make sure you do that. Dig deep and start fresh. You know, if you haven't been happy with what you've been doing as of recently, start fresh. Right now, as you're hearing this right now, you can literally make some smart decisions as you're listening to this right now. When you're done, go eat something more healthy, keep your thoughts more positive, and it'll just be a snowball that just keeps growing, and you keep going off that, all right? And you'll feel good about yourself, all right, guys? That's what I have to say to you guys. You guys know I got nothing but love for all you guys that tune into my videos, especially you guys that are here at the end, because I know you guys are the real diehards that really rock with me here, and I rock with you guys. So I appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know. Truly believe that, you know. And shout out to you guys for listening to an MMA breakdown podcast or show that's a little bit more entertaining than what I see from some of these other guys, because you know I've seen what else is out there, and I don't know how some of you guys watch that stuff. You got these nerds on there that have never been in a fight in their life, and even if some of them train MMA, they've never been in a real fight, and they're just a little bit dorky, and it's just boring listening to some of those guys talk. And sometimes I take a look at my competition, and I don't understand how they even have the views that they do. You know, some of them, they don't even know how to take care of themselves. I mean, look at the way that some of them look. What do they know about fighting? What do they know about being a professional? You know, you guys know one particular guy that I'm talking about. You know, he's out there talking about everybody, but I mean, look at the dude. I mean, the guy can't even wash himself. He can't even cut a couple pounds. I mean, how long is the guy even going to be around? All right, you know, let me calm down on that note. But all right, guys, on that note, signing out, the MMA fortune teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
I just want to very, very briefly touch upon the two bets that I targeted, and just briefly touch upon some of the fights throughout this card. Overall, we did pick this card very well. Stephanie Egger, we had her to take out Aylin Perez, the newcomer. I thought that Egger was going to be the more experienced fighter. I felt that her judo would give Perez some trouble, as I didn't think that Perez was going to get those easy takedowns, and then Egger would kind of exploit her a little bit. Christian Quinones, you know, I picked him as an underdog here. He was an official play of mine. We grabbed him at plus 130, threw 2 units on him, and that was a fight that I felt there was plenty of value on. I hope you guys all targeted Quinones there. I did not feel that he was a plus 130 there. I had him as you guys know, when I did the fight breakdown upon that card, there was no betting line on that fight, and I thought that Quinones should have been the slight favorite there. So you guys know I was all over that play. Sliding through the card, Benoit Saint Denis, we expected him to go out there and handle business. He sure did. For us, Zaim, this was a fight that I did not pick correctly. I did pick Michel Figlak to win this fight. You guys know I said that I do have a lot of respect for Ziam, and I was potentially targeting him there as my pick. I didn't do it, though. I hesitated. I really liked what I saw from Figlak on tape, and he did not look as impressive in his UFC debut. And but again, for us, as Zaim is a fighter that I do have a great deal of respect for, as you guys know, and we talked about some potential value on him from a betting perspective. He had the UFC experience. He's still so young. He's developing in front of our eyes. You see his grappling come around. So I was kicking myself a little bit there for not picking Ziam, because I was very close to doing that and I didn't. Nasrat went out there, handled the aging McDessie. Abyss Magomedov went out there and just flatlined Dustin Stoltzfus, putting Stoltzfus back in order, back in check. He's a fighter that I'm not really that high on. I thought got away with a little bit away with some stuff in his last fight, taking out a guy that I'm not that high on, and Grant. And I'm not really sure if Stoltzfus was much deserving of getting that extension and hanging around in the UFC much longer, in my opinion. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on him, but Nathaniel Wood went out there, took out Charles Jourdain. I had to hold the L there. Charles Jourdain was my other official play, a very small stab on him as well. Grabbed him at minus 135. I thought there was some value there. I was interested and a little disappointed to see the way that Charles Jourdain performed in this fight. He was just in there with a guy in Shane Burgos who was much larger than Nathaniel Wood, and a guy that I have a lot of respect for in Shane Burgos. And a lot of people thought that Charles Jourdain won that fight. One way or another, he went out there and he had an impressive performance against Burgos, had some success on the feet, had him hurt, wobbled him. Jourdain is a fighter that's still very young. I love his striking. He has good BJJ skills. I was surprised to see his performance that he put out there against the much smaller Nathaniel Wood. I know Nathaniel Wood's a solid fighter himself, but I was disappointed in what I saw from Charles Jourdain. So we held that L there, and we took very, very slight losses on the card, basically losing a unit or so, which I'm just not really that worried about. As I've been breaking down the numbers on the year for 2022, which I'll be having a video come out to you very soon, hitting 3/4 of the way throughout the year, I am up almost 50 units on the year. So we'll be breaking all that down for you guys. So not even sweating that 1 unit loss there. And you guys know we're bouncing back for UFC 279. William Gomez went out there, took out Jarno Arens, used his grappling more so to get the job done. Didn't really want too much to deal with Jarno on the feet. Jarno, obviously, his striking is his bread and butter, as is Gomez, but Gomez, the more well-rounded fighter. Roman Kopylov went out there, knocked out Alessio De Chirico. You guys know I picked him to win the fight, even when he was a slight dog as well. I was not a believer that Alessio De Chirico was going to be able to withstand any type of damage, and that's exactly what happened. Nasruddin Amavov went out there, took out Buckley. You guys know I have a great deal of respect for Buckley, but Amavov, just a way sharper striker. I expected that fight to play out exactly like it did. Buckley showing a lot of heart, hanging tough in the later rounds. Robert Whitaker, the better fighter, went out there, was able to do exactly what we thought he would do. He would be able to keep Marvin Vettori off him with the pace and the grappling and be the better striker. And then Cyril Gane went out there and knocked out Tai Tuivasa. Tuivasa dropped him early. Tuivasa showed that he's a very tough fighter. But Cyril Gane, of course, as we all knew, would be the more polished striker, the better athlete, and should have went out there and got the job done. And that's exactly what he did. So again, from an overall picks perspective of the card, we did very well, but still disappointed that Charles Jourdain dropped the ball there, not making it a profitable night. But it was what it was.